Okay, hello everyone. Much love to you for joining. For everyone who is joining us live, many hugs, virtual hugs to you. Please share your thoughts, comments, also in the chat box. Like if you're experiencing any types of weird stuff which has been going down lately, especially during the full moon right now, please share them. Like many people have been writing in that we're having like strange sleep patterns, like weird stuff happen during the night, also like old stuff is coming up again. So we're going to address that at first because that's kind of what we're in right now. But in general, we want to talk about our guides, like who are they? Who do you have with you? Who is helping you? Who is protecting you? And generally, like how can you connect with your guides and have a more fruitful and more consciously interactive relationship? Because like they're always there with us, we are just sometimes choosing to pretend that nothing, no one's there. It's just us. And we are having privacy in our lives. But when you're like opening up yourself energetically, you start to realize that there is no such thing in the higher realms, especially when you're becoming more intuitive. There are just so many things happening around us and energies coming in and out of our lives and our homes, basically. Okay, so in the beginning, we would like to address the symptoms also related to what is happening during this full moon period. I've been also experiencing some weird sleeping patterns during the new moon at the beginning of the month.
Mhm.
And higher vibrations is going to share, hello, higher vibrations.
Right.
Thank you for joining us. Is going to share her thoughts on this, like how we can easily navigate it. Like, because last week we have talked about the physical symptoms, emotional and mental symptoms that comes with the awakening process, becoming more aware and conscious, and all the weird, unexplainable stuff that we have in our lives. So if you haven't seen that, that was last week's topic. But after we have finished the 1 hour plus session, we have realized that we haven't really addressed the topic of like what can you do to remedy those situations. And at the beginning of this live session, we want to address that, like how can you navigate more easily all those weird stuffs and changes that you're experiencing right now.
Right. So it's my turn. Sorry. By the way, my internet is crazy right now. I'm going in and out. I am hearing most of what you're saying, but the solutions for a lot of the ascension symptoms is what I'm to address right now, correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Like whenever you disappear, I would try to fill in the blanks.
I apologize. Thank you. Yes. So we are before we go into it really quickly, ascension symptoms are simply a side effect of us growing towards a higher dimensional frequency space. Our DNA is being upgraded so we can ascend in the same physical form, which is really awesome. And that's my understanding of it anyway. And a lot of the things that are happening, there aren't complete, like you can stop at 100%. It's a growing pain that we need to have, but there's ways to alleviate or to ease the experience. One of the main things that people will do is go into nature. That's not a possibility for a lot of people right now. It's colder. The solution to kind of walk barefoot in colder temperate zones is to bring in some soil into your house and to simply just rest your feet on top of that soil or play with it with your hands. Baths, we talked about that, salt baths, connecting with water. Water is really amazing right now. I've been noticing it activating, which is just so beautiful and cool. And there are really three main things to consider: to connect with other people like us that are awakened and becoming aware or are aware of what's going on, connect with each other, listen to your body, and to meditate every day. And that only has to happen about 5 minutes a day. The longer, the better. But if you can meditate each day, Guardian had some really good suggestions. You know, when you're at work, you can just go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
That was a really good
that's
example.
a great excuse. You can always excuse yourself to the bathroom. No one will ask questions.
Right. You know, and in that place of meditation, you don't have to really do much of anything except just center yourself. Gardening has a lot of really awesome guidance of, very many videos about meditating and how to ground yourself and the methods of doing that. And that's all you're needing to do, is to ground yourself and align yourself with that space as we go. And then, as you're listening to your body, allow your body to guide you in your eating habits. And that includes extra indulgence in water. Our bodies need a lot of water right now. And I've noticed the more I allow myself to drink the water that my body wants.
Yeah, like the more easier things flow. Also, it has a beautiful purifying effect upon our body. Like also, like our body is made mostly out of water, and as we're like ascending into the higher spheres, as we're like evolving, also our physical structure is changing. And like, I don't know, like any
the
of
more
you.
ease
Okay. Please continue.
Yes, and that's mainly it. That just those main things. Listen to your body. There, it encompasses a lot of different things. However, that one key factor that many people don't think about is connecting with others like us. And the first format that I was able to do that was with Guardian of Orion and these live events that you're in right now. If you can't communicate back and forth, if you're doing this on replay, comment on others' comments within the page and start up that conversation, connecting with one another.
Yeah, we will try to respond to all the comments, to answer them to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
That's it? Okay.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, yeah, like stuff will come up, that's perfectly fine too. Like mostly we wanted to address on this live event the topic of our guides, like who can they be, who they are, like how many do you have at a specific time, who are they, what are they doing exactly in our lives, and how can they help us. And I think I will try to like address it in a very short term at the beginning, then we're like, you can like expand on it. Like if any of us like have any, if you want to share anything, not just higher vibrations, but you listening also, not just in the chat box, but also in the comment sections. Like if you had any strange experiences with guides or similar experiences, like, okay, so let's go into who are our guides. So basically there are, in my opinion, our support team. Like when you go into a difficult reality or wherever you are, you kind of have your team who are supporting you in that endeavor. And basically our guides or our spirit team who are always with us. And they can be basically like anything. It depends on like who you are, what you are exploring. Some of us may have ancestors of ours, being guides, ascended masters, guardian angels, elementals. I think people can have like elementals. I never really had that, but I heard of it. And you can also have, in many cases, ETs. Like for many of us who are listening, probably that's mostly the case. Like the most I was aware of my guides, they were most like extraterrestrial consciousness. To a certain degree manifesting themselves here, but also I had like the ascended master stuff too in the beginning and right now too. And you always have like someone with you, so you're never alone. So you can never be like left alone or abandoned, or you can never really have that experience that something happens and it's like out of control, or you were left alone and you were like vulnerable or something like that. So you're always has someone with you. So whenever you ask for guidance or assistance, you have like the direct line of connection to whomever you need to connect to at that time. So don't be afraid. Okay. But in the beginning, like when we are opening up to this broader reality and experiencing all these weird stuff, you have your guides with you, and they may try to communicate with you or send like signals maybe, but they, in my opinion, they're mostly in the background. So they won't present themselves to you. They won't be like, hey, like we are your guides and we want to talk to you. they will be like nudging you in the right direction, if like that's like the best explanation for it. But in my opinion, they have never presented themselves. And most of the times, I'm not even very much aware, like, with whom am I exactly working with?
Mhm.
And to a certain extent, like, I kind of learned that it's not always important, because sometimes it kind of can be distracting, or sometimes it's something that you have no clue of what that is, or you have no point of reference of like, what the heck is that, basically. And yeah, and sometimes it is important to like know like whom you're working with, and sometimes they will definitely send you signals or like interesting synchronicities, letting you kind of know, like in a very suggestive way, that okay, like we're here with you, and if you want to, we're open for more direct interaction. And in my case, it was mostly with like ascended master type beings, and also the archangels. Like I was hearing names, like just in my thoughts, like names that I haven't heard before, or maybe I heard somewhere, but I had like zero clue who that was or what that is. And I researched it, and I recognized, and like, oh yeah, like I'm totally like exploring that right now. And maybe you're learning something, or you're healing something, or you're just in the middle of, I don't know, like doing something more intense or something very specific in your journey. And usually someone comes in that's like the best guide for that specific thing that you're learning at that time.
Right.
And this is why like ascended masters or archangels can periodically come in when you're doing a specific thing. And after you have learned that, or you have processed something, then they go, basically. And whenever you're returning to that theme, they can like reemerge again in your consciousness. Like I remember, for example, when I had my awakening, I had like, I don't know if they were like Pleiadians. They were very much human looking, who were like assisting me. I've never seen them. Like the only time I have seen my Pleiadian or Lyran guides, I have no clue where they are from exactly, was during a hypnotic regression. But yeah, like that's the only time, because like I directly went into that experience to like uncover stuff. But in generally, I just got the feeling of who they are, and I could like recognize their energy. This super high, overwhelming, unconditional love feeling. That's pretty much very overwhelming. Like any of you have had like experiences with Yeshua or Christ or whatever you want to call him, like they have a very similar, like overwhelming, this love energy that they're emanating. Like if you haven't healed that much, or you're in the process of doing so, then their presence can be very overwhelming, like emotionally, because like you're not ready yet to fully embrace that high vibrational energy, and that kind of like knocks you over, basically. And their overwhelming energy. And that's also why many of our ET guides like only project a part of their consciousness when they're like interacting with you, because their like high vibrational energy would be just too much for us.
Right.
You know, like sometimes you can have like experiences like I had I think like 3 years ago. We were like experimenting on becoming having more of a direct relationship during the night time. When actually, I think that was also like just a projection. When yeah, like there were many nights when I just went to bed but haven't slept, like, and they came into the room partially. I don't know if they were there physically, but I could definitely feel a strong presence. And they were definitely like exposing me more intensely to their energies, to see what I do and how I adapt to it, I think.
Right.
But yeah, like that's usually how they, I don't know, they also kind of test you. So they're going to have like, along your journey, you're going to have more challenging experiences with your guides or other dimensional beings, when they're like giving you a test, basically, or they're giving you a situation, and basically they're going to watch and observe you, like, okay, like how do you resolve this situation, or how do you adapt, or what do you do under the circumstances? Do you freak out and like pull the plug? Or you try to hold your own energy and stay aligned to yourself?
Right.
Because yeah, like when they come in more fully, then absolutely it can be super overwhelming. And that's kind of what I was exploring like 2 years ago, to hold my own energy, because it's like very easy to, I know, like surrender yourself to them. Like when you're like super, you have like a super high vibrational being, it is very overwhelming. And it can feel like, I don't know if any of you had this experience, that you kind of lose your sense of self and you become like them. Or I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone had that experience. So you completely detach from yourself and you start to exhibit those traits and like completely become that being. And that's usually when they stop, because you failed the test basically. You weren't able to hold your own energy and it was too overwhelming at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that can be also type how you can experience them. But I would probably say that probably those are not your guides, in my opinion, because they usually don't really present themselves to you in that way. But yeah, like when you have your awakening, then you're very much, as everyone is interested about your spirit guides. You can have like totem animal, guardian angels, and all that stuff. And
What are their names?
and many things come in, and like in the beginning it is very difficult like differentiate, like okay, like who is my guide, who is with me, or who is trying to interfere with what I'm doing or to come into my field. And to some it can be very scary, because yeah, like you go in blind to those experiences, because we don't have a basis in how these stuff work. Like our society has meticulously conditioned us to be like completely oblivious to this. And when these weird stuff actually happen, then it throws us off because we have no clue what to do with it. And it can be very frightening. You have all these weird experiences and you have no clue, like, okay, like who is friend or foe, to be very extreme in this perspective, basically.
Right.
And even in those cases, like maybe you're having a very beneficial experience, or your guides or your ET family or whatever whom you are connected to are trying to come in and interact with you more directly, can become very scary, because like the so-called regressive ones or the parasites came first and they scared you. And then when the so-called good ones come in, then that scares you too, because they can be very similar to an experience.
Right.
Yeah. But this is basically how you can navigate it, is to tune into your heart, basically. To be very, yeah, like just as we were talking about empathic abilities, like appearances can be deceiving, not just here, and especially in the higher realms.
Right.
Yeah, like how they, like entities or your guides, how they present themselves to you, I think 90% of the time is bogus.
Yes.
Maybe it's just a symbol or it's a screen memory, but I think most of the time it's not how they actually are, in my opinion. And this is very much true to regressive ones too, and also to your guides or your ET family. Especially in the beginning, they will not present themselves to you, or you will see something that you get like a idea of who they are, but they will not present their energy to you. Just when you're starting to be more open and more balanced in your earth experience here, basically.
Right.
Okay, so do
And
you want
that's,
to share? Yeah.
yeah, I would love to. Thank you. I just wanted to make a few comments on what you've already said. Also, that's also about why it's important for us to regrow, I guess, our spirit. Oh, did I lose you? Okay, no, okay, good. Our spiritual discernment. Like we have that ability. We were born with that, the ability to know what is true. We're walking lie detectors, basically. And in the experience, this physical experience we've been having, a lot of the stuff around us through media and so on is teaching us not to trust our intuition, is what another word that's being used for that. Not to trust ourselves. And we're in this place now of remembering to trust yourself, remembering those intuitive abilities, and to know also that if whatever it is, if it's something spiritual or whatever, if you send love to it, that's how I can tell the difference if I'm not sure. Because if it is of love, it will answer back. If it is not of love, it will flee. And that's like, it works every time. Like that is like my go-to thing. It's really cool how many different spirit guides and angels and things like that are here to help us. We have like a massive team, like Guardian had mentioned. And I have noticed that as I have evolved in my own spiritual development in this physical form, I've kind of graduated above certain individuals that were very present for me earlier on in my life, you know. And my first real, when this type of stuff became a very pronounced thing in my life, I was 4 years old. And so I've watched a lot of different groups of people that have been present for me change out. One of the things that's always a question that I hear all the time, I want to know the name of my angels, or I want to know my, you know. And it's actually really easy to do, but it's funny because once you figure it out, it seems like it doesn't matter anymore. But all you have to do is just ask, and the answer will come to you. Like, just ask them, what's your name?
They don't have a name. That can
Yeah.
also totally be possible.
Right. I named one of them Bob because the name was like, it's more of a resonance than a name, because of the way we speak is very archaic for most experiences, you know. And most of my interactions are also, oh, before I forget, most often they will not interfere unless they are asked for. They'll do if it's a need, if it's an emergency situation, if you're in something, you know, they'll show up and offer themselves, but not always. If you need them, ask, and they will be there because of the law of free will. That's how it works, you know. And of all the different experiences that I've had in interacting, just like Guardian, most of them have been in a place of meditation, in astral travel, in those kind of experiences, also dreams. And I don't even know if the dreams are dreams or what, you know, but I had one experience. Well, I had a couple, but there's been a few times in my life that I have died in this lifetime. And those are the times that they come pretty pronounced. But one of the ones that it was the coolest were these disembodied arms. I moved into a place that was full of very broken energy, is the best way to say it, where the not only did the ground have a lot of history of like old wars and stuff, it turns out there used to be a torture hospital built on that same property. But the stuff that had happened in that particular location was also very negative. Anyway, so I moved in, and it pulled me down. It was so difficult. Then this was about a year ago, and I was so pulled down that I was almost unable to interact with the world. Like it was really, and I was, you know how you get down underneath that water of it and you just can't really do anything about it. Anyway, I was laying down and just done, you know, not sure what to do, and just upset and sad, but not even. Anyway, all of a sudden I knew somebody was there, but I saw this person, I saw with my physical eyes, these two arms above my body, and the hands were presenting this healing energy on me. And I could see the things being pulled from me. And that was I never had that where I saw it, you know, where it was like, and I could, you know, I've done that with the corner of my eye, and you just like, when you look, then you know it. That was a fun experience, you know. But for the most part, it's when I'm in a place of meditation, you feel them, you know them. But for me, I don't witness them with my naked eyes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I think most of them are like unperceivable, or you can't really see them with your physical eyes.
Yeah.
Most of them, yeah, like especially if they like project their consciousness, you only get like a feeling of who they are or what they can be, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think, yeah, like I also wanted to address that, yeah, like you mentioned the media, how they're like conditioning us to not trust our intuition.
Right.
And the even worse stuff about it, like I also had, like, I think I worked like years on this. When you're having these, they're making all these movies and series about these weird stuff when they portray this whole thing, but being scary. They're like
Yeah.
horror movies and stories. And when you're actually at that point in your life, when you're awakening and having those strange experiences that you have seen in the movies, and they've kind of like conditioned you along the years that this is something that you should be afraid of, or this is something bad. Like I had to work on that for several years, I think, to completely let it go.
Yeah.
So sadly, that's also criteria that can like very much hinder our interaction with guides. Like even if your ET family or your spirits guides are trying to connect with you, you can like label it or interpret it as something scary or negative because you had all this preconditioning
Mhm.
to all those interactions. So yeah, like it just as high vibration said, we're super lie detectors. So
Mhm.
sense stuff because like how they present themselves is bogus. It's a
Right.
symbol or it's a screen memory, and you should always like sense like how do you feel when
Yeah.
those things happen. Like is it good, is it neutral, do you feel uncomfortable? Yeah, like that can be also a very good sign that probably you should ask for them to leave.
Right.
If it makes you feel uncomfortable or cold or maybe scared or agitated, that's probably not good. But
Right.
yeah, like when you're feeling this overwhelming love or you're like super energized or elevated, then most probably it's your soul family or your guides being in your midst, basically being around you to a certain extent, assisting you with something. Okay.
And then also like just being aware that um I don't know, this is a side note, I guess, but just when I used to really love those horror movies. I watched a lot of them.
Yeah, me
And
too. My
yeah, that was like my thing. That's all I did. That was the only thing I watched. And I have gotten personally for me in my experience to the point where I witnessed the change in my spiritual demeanor when I watched those types of things. So I've found out that I've slowly stopped watching them altogether. And it's kind of a little bit frustrating because of some of the coolest storylines, and they're like, oh, but they made it scary. you know but that does help me personally in my own private experience. I'm not suggesting you do one or the other, but um and also that just to remember that we have this massive team, and some of these team members of these spirit guides do overlap to other people that we're connected to, and that's part of why there's that familiarity that we have. Like, I mean, like Guardian and I share a few, and I don't know if
Who,
you know that, but like, like when
who
we
do we
connect with
share?
each, what's that?
Who do we share?
We'll talk about it later. But like, it's just really interesting that that's kind of part of what like our teammates and our team leaders, I guess, as you can call them. There's this connection that's just so beautiful, like that, and we don't have to attach to anybody is the main point. But like you're eventually gonna evolve and grow above who's present in your life at this time. And simply to know how to call them is probably the most important thing, right? And that's simply asking for help. You don't have to put anything else. There's no special words, there's no spell. It's just, you can say it in your mind. You don't have to say it out loud, and they will come. And just like Guardian said, you feel it in your heart. You know if they're there to assist you, to heighten your space or to diminish it. And if you feel in any way that you're uncomfortable or the space is not being heightened, then they're not the ones to come.
Yep, probably, yes. And like also what you said with the overlapping guides, like there are different types of beings, like at different phases of their evolution. Like
Yeah.
the ones that are like very close to us in their evolution, maybe like some of your ancestors or spirit guides or spirit animals, they can be like more limited, very similar to us. So probably they don't overlap or extend to multiple persons at a time. But like with ascended masters or archangels, they are like far more expansive. So they can be a guide to thousands or God knows how many people at the same time. So they're not just working with you. They're like working with many, many, many people at the same time.
Right. Exactly. And we were gonna, before I forget, we were gonna talk about the experiences everybody's having with the full moon. Do you want to talk about that, or should we wait till later?
No, we can talk about it right now.
I'm sorry, I just jumping around. Someone knocked on my door, so it threw me off. Yeah. Don't knock on my door, by the way, people. Don't do that. Text me first. Anyway, the full moon experiences, just like we were talking about, our body's mostly water. There's a lot of gravitational stuff that happens with the moon, and there's a lot of cool energy stuff that comes from that. And as a result, for me, in my experience, my ear ringing stuff has like gone through the roof, and like the disorientation, but like in a euphoric way, like a giddy kind of way. It's before I was having a lot of like this almost panic attack kind of stuff, and it's turned into like this euphoria experience, but it still prevents me from sleeping.
I'm also very agitated during the night for some reason. Like every hour I wake up to see the clock, like, oh, just 1 hour spent went by. And I know, like between the waking minutes, like I have all these vivid experiences of so many things that feel like an entire night worth of experience. And just 1 hour passed, I can like barely wait for the morning to get up.
Right. Some really amazing dreams have been occurring lately, as well as like there's so much going on in the astral experience right now. It's just phenomenal. But there's so much, you know, like you're talking about you're getting tested. It's like it almost feels like not so much test. In my experience, it's more of like pushing you or encouraging you, you know, and let's see how you do with this now. So yeah, it's like a test in a lot of ways, but it's like in my experiences right now, there's more school like stuff. It's like, and then I go up there and like there's such a large team of people talking about spirit guides. There's a team, and like I'm familiar with everybody there until I wake up. I'm like, wait, who was all those people again? You know, but there's always something to bring back, and it seems like those kind of experiences are like in hyperdrive right now, like to where I can't remember most of it, except for I'm like trying to frantically document the information before I lose it. But and like you said, that's only in like a 20-minute. I start dreaming as soon as I fall asleep now, because my sleep has been so disrupted lately. It's weird because you're supposed to be asleep for a period of time before you go into dream state. I go there right away now.
Yeah, like I also notice like my sleeping patterns changing completely. Like I sleep much more easily for some reason, although it's much more agitated. Also like this, like we had on the 16th, the full moon, I slept, like I think I slept 8 hours technically, but when I woke up in the morning, I was like super tired.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff probably happened during the night too.
Right. Yeah, the full moon I don't know how it works. I saw the full moon last night, like, but for you that was like, I'm not sure how that works actually, for because you're opposite side of the world from me. Yeah. But yeah, that was really phenomenal experience, some really weird stuff. But it's all connected and it's all present, and the energy that is all being aligned right now. There's America's having its Pluto return on the 22nd, also on 2/2/22/22.
Yeah. So many twos.
That's going to be really cool.
And what will that mean, or what will that bring about?
I am not entirely sure, but I've always been so obsessed with Pluto, and like when they demoted it from planet status, I was like really upset. Like when I was in high school, people would ask me why I was weird, and I would say I'm from Pluto, and like that was just my thing, you know. And so I haven't explored it really any further, but Jacques Randa Marie said that it was a return, and so I really should look into it more. But it does seem significant, and the fact that it's on that day is pretty interesting.
yeah, like under so many twos are going to be on that day. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, so we should talk more about our guides, maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, like when you were talking, I got the idea of, I know, like anyone has read ET 101. It's like a very short channeled material from the 90s, I think. Like it's very superb on like starting you up during your awakening process of like how things work and who your team is basically. And it goes in very deeply into your, yeah, like basically your light team, who are with you and who are the ones that are supporting you. And it kind of gives you a brief overview of why you are here or who you could be basically. And as you're like going through the manual, you kind of recognize your task and the stuff and the traits that you have. And there's like this chapter about like help, asking for help. And there are like different types of, I think they call it like units, like support units who work with you. They're not always with you, but they're very similar to maybe as you have, how do you call when you call the ambulance or something? It's like something happens and you call the ambulance and you receive like this specialist team that addresses that issue for you. And they have this chapter about like not just necessarily physical problems. Like if you get ill or you have an accident, they can like come in if you ask for them. And I think I did it like 3 times in the beginning of my awakening process. Like I haven't clearly like addressed it to anyone, but I kind of thought of that chapter and I was like asking very strongly for help because I was like very sick or like very scared of what was happening to me.
Mhm.
And it was an incredibly powerful experience. Like I will share 2 of them like very briefly. Like the first one was at the very beginning of my awakening, and I was like experimenting with all energy stuff and like charging your body with energy. And I did went a bit overboard. And anyone if is familiar with energy work, you can like overcharge your body or like stress it out because at a certain point you're able to channel a specific amount of energy through your body. And if you like do too much, then it overcharges your body and that can also cause problems. And I did something in the middle of the day and during the afternoon I became very sick. Like I had to vomit. I was very agitated. I was like almost on the verge of passing out, basically. Like it was very, I had no clue what was happening to me. Like I felt it like it was completely out of my control. And I laid down home and like very strongly asked for help. Like, okay, like I have no clue what's happening to me. Like help, like do something.
Mhm.
And after like 2 minutes, like I was very aware of what was happening. I like kind of passed out, like everything went black and I felt like a hand. I was laying on my side in the bed, and like someone went under me like a hand and like pushed me out of my body to be like in a seated position in the bed, but my body was laying in the bed basically. And like someone was like with one of their hands like holding my shoulders, and with the other they were like inserting this type of cylindrical type of energy rotating thing into my head. Oh yeah, my head was hurting incredibly.
Mhm.
And I was feeling that like cylinder like going through my head, like collecting stuff. And they just pushed me back into my body. I like came back I think it only took like 2 minutes or so. I came back and like all the problems were gone. So it was like, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had like another occasion too when I think I got an influenza or something similar. I had very high fever and I was familiar with energy work and healing at the time, but I couldn't do anything for myself.
Mhm.
And I did the same thing. I asked for help and I had the same situation. Like I was very sick. I couldn't eat. I couldn't hold even fluids inside my body. And I couldn't eat. I was very weak and my temperature was like super high. And I asked for help. At that time, for some reason, my wife, then girlfriend, left the house, but she left some food for me there while she was gone. And the same thing happened. Like I passed out, and like someone came in, and I think it like half an hour passed or something similar. And then I woke up again, and I was like, poof, I was super energized. Like all the nausea and all the sick feeling was gone. I was very tired and was like incredibly hungry. So I quickly ate everything on the table and had to like run out and grab some more food from the kitchen.
Wow.
But like half an hour before that, I couldn't even hold like fluids in my body. I was so sick. And yeah, like all the the discomfort and the agitation was like completely gone. I was still very tired from the experience because it tires out the body, but I could like rest and recover just a few days. So yeah, I guess your support team, what they can do to basically.
And that's awesome. And we also get other like more subtle type stuff. Like you reminded me of an experience I had not too long ago where someone had changed my oil and the oil cap didn't get put back on. It was sitting in there, and over like a 2 or 3 day period, I kept getting like what I was experiencing was it was like deja vu, but there was like impending doom feeling in it. And I'm like, what are you, I was getting so frustrated. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? Just freaking out with it, you know? And like, but at the same time, I had no idea it had anything to do with the truck. All I knew was that I was having these experiences. And then on the side note, I kept feeling like I should put windshield wiper fluid in the truck, even though I knew there was windshield wiper fluid in there. I even went and bought some. I'm driving around like this. And I didn't follow my instinct. I didn't follow the guidance. And I was driving with my young daughter, and all of a sudden I couldn't stop the car. I couldn't stop the truck. The oil cap had wedged itself under the accelerator. So as I accelerated it just would stay going that fast, no matter how many brakes I put on it. I didn't know you can put it in neutral to turn the vehicle off until I called 911, and they were like, do this. But and my young daughter's like, this is my dream. We're gonna die. And she's screaming. And I was like, but no. All of that could have been prevented. We're obviously fine. That was very traumatic experience to have. But while that was happening too, I was calmed. I felt hands on my shoulder, and I was just like at ease, even though my kid's saying we're gonna die and screaming on top of her lungs. And I'm trying to calm her and control this crazy fast. We're going in a 25-mile-an-hour road, and there was nobody on the road, even though there should have been. It was in the middle of the day. Anyway, I had been guided to open up the hood of my vehicle and look. And I didn't follow that instinct. But at the same time, in the experience, it still happened. I was made to be calm, and I was calmed down. And as soon as I got off the phone with 911, I didn't have reception, but somehow I had reception in that moment. Like those types of things happen, and it's beautiful that it does. But yeah. You know, and they're always there for us. We just gotta listen.
Yeah, like I also have these very frustrating experiences, like, you know, like when you're about to do something, or you have that same feeling that, okay, like something's not right, or maybe there could be a problem with this later on. I'm like, okay, like, but what? Like, okay, like, yeah. What's the problem? Like, I don't get it. Like, I have the feeling that, okay, like something's wrong or could be wrong later on, but what should I pay attention to?
Right.
Yeah, like I'm having difficulty with that too. Yeah. And it's like so frustrating. Like, is this it? Is that? No, is that? Or I don't know.
Can you just send me a letter?
Or something more clearer. I don't know.
Right. Excuse me. We are given all the messages that we need, as well as, you know, the experiences that happen are stuff that help us to grow and to learn, grow into the people that we're here to be, you know. And some of these difficulties are things that we chose to do, you know. A lot of these things, like I'm a big fan of Dolores Cannon. She talks about that quite a bit, where just, you know, like the soul contract concept, you know. And at the same time, we have a team of guides who are here to support us and guide us down the path that will assist us in the most correct way, if we choose to take their help.
Yeah, like it's
You don't have to.
Yeah, we don't have to. And I also like to like be very rebellious.
Mhm.
Like whenever you're trying to do something or you're about to do something and they say like, hey, like this probably, you get the feeling that probably wouldn't be the best thing to do right now, but still I'm going to do it.
Right. Like the defiant child. I'm doing it.
Let's see what happens.
I do that too.
Yeah, like, but thank God, like they are usually like very mild stuff or like not that, don't have very big consequences.
Right.
But still they're like sending you that signal like, okay, like you probably shouldn't be doing this right now or something.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Are you sure you want to do that right now? Okay. It's
Yeah.
your experience. Like yeah, like that's why they don't interfere like when something happens to you, because basically to a certain extent you have chosen that experience.
Right.
And they're not allowed to take it away from you. But if you ask for their help, then you allow them to intervene or do something to remedy the situation, basically.
Exactly.
So that's why they're always like saying, if you want help, then ask for it, because if you don't ask for it, you won't receive anything.
Right. I always hear in Dumbledore's voice, help will always
come to the one. Oh, how is it? I don't remember. I think
come to those who ask for it. But it was just, I hear his voice.
Yeah, but he later on, like, I think he like tweaked his saying that help will always come to the ones who deserve it or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's true for all of these things, you know, like there's a limit because of the law of the universe is free will, you know, and we are here with this free will experience. It's all things that we choose, and you can choose to do all kinds of horrific things. You can choose to do all these amazing things, and it's because that is our gift of this experience, you know, and so there's only a few, there's a very limited amount of things where they can intervene without requests, I guess is what we should say.
Yeah, and like I know, like I've said this, like Dumbledore tweaked his saying that the help will be given to those who deserve it. Like that's not, I know, like, entirely true. But maybe if you like went down like a very deep road already, like you kind of limit your possibilities and what they can do or how they can assist you. Like if you went very far down deep into something, then it's can be difficult to come out. So they won't like resolve the whole situation in your life just like that. Like if you went very far from your optimal path in life, basically.
Right.
And you're like Wolf Gray said something very interesting. Like you can talk to your body too. Ask your heart to for an upward motion for yes or a downward motion for no. I can ask my anybody and any part of my body now. Try it. It works. Yeah, like just as you were saying, higher vibrations that we are like lie detectors too. Also, okay, like we talked about like receiving or getting impressions and feelings about people, places, experiences, entities, but in part your body is the physical lie detector. Like also your body sends you a lot of signals about not just what's happening inside of you, like maybe if you have an illness or something's off, but also in your surroundings. Like I have noticed, especially when like interfering forces or something nasty is coming in, like my body reacts very intensely to it. Like I get these chills on my back, like the hair on my back stands up. Like that's the most strongest, but that yeah, that's too obvious. But yeah, like listen to your body too, because like it sends you a lot of little subtle signals, and the more you pay attention to it, the more clearer it will be. It will be much more easier to read it and like interpret it, because yeah, like I think yeah, like all of our bodies are unique and all our minds are unique, and how we see reality is very much unique to each individual. And how you work with your body, how you see reality, how you communicate with your higher self is unique to everyone. And basically you have to develop and find a way that best works for you, like what makes most sense for you. And the best way you can do that is to pay attention to yourself as much as you can. Like this is where meditation comes in. Like you shut off everything, you put down your phone, turn off the TV, and just pay attention to yourself and what is coming through, basically.
Right. There's, for me, I get the butterflies in my stomach, like this sacral chakra kind of experience, and like I'll get a flushed face. But like everybody has a different signal that tells them something is amiss. But like the one thing I wanted to point out, I love that comment about our bodies, and it goes in so many different directions. Like this whole thing about the ascension symptom concept is simply that we have all this junk DNA that's been dormant all this time that's being turned on now, right? And I'm only mentioning that because there's all this stuff that we have already coded that we don't know we can do. One of the things is if you sit in a correct position with your back aligned and having your arms kind of put on your knees, and I've found this for myself anyway, say to myself, body, align thyself. And I'll notice all of a sudden, like wherever there's a kink or a problem, it like even like my back will sometimes like need to be popped or whatever, it'll just do it, like we just need to ask, and the fact that our heart is a more amazing mechanism than our brain. And we've been told all this time that our brain is the big deal, but our heart is actually something that's been ignored. To touch my heart with the tips of my fingers in the beginning of a meditation is the most powerful thing I can do, involving my heart into my experience. Your heart is amazing.
Indeed. Yeah, like also people, like our culture places very big emphasis on our brains, like that's like the working force behind everything in our body. And like also like the higher realm teachings and ETs are like teaching us like, okay, your physical brain is very important because it's like the main processing unit that like maneuvers stuff. It like calibrates your body and how you function in 3D reality, but it's more like an interpreter, like a receiver of information, and rather than the thing that actually creates those things. Or like I know, like I'm an artist, and like many artists talk about it like in a way that my brain is giving me inspiration, or I don't know. And basically, if you're like more aware spiritually, then you can kind of sense after a time that, okay, like when you're receiving some kind of inspiration to write music or paint something, it's not your brain doing it. Like you're receiving those inspirations from your higher self, from something far higher from this local body, basically. And your mind and your local mind, your brain is kind of like interpreting the whole thing and making it's translating it into the 3D reality, in my opinion. So
definitely, it's a projector.
It's a projector. It's like this, like also during channeling, I know like when my guides talk through me or something, it also works in that same way that I'm receiving some kind of signal from somewhere else. And the brain is basically this vocabulary or this translator that like converts that energy into comprehensible information for us, basically.
Right. And that's why automated writing works so well, because when you're keeping your brain busy and distracted is when the messages come through the most clearly, and that was actually the first method of meditation that I ever did. When I would sketch, I could turn my brain off because I'm not using my mind. And then I would just kind of be able to channel into a space. And that was the first meditation method I ever did.
Doing the automated sketching.
When I'm sketching, you don't use your brain. You kind of and then you can go into that higher dimensional space. You don't have to, I'm not present anymore. It's the same as if I'm playing a puzzle that requires my mind, my brain to like figure it out. I'm finally at peace for a moment. I can turn my brain off.
Yeah, like also when you're like trying to channel or bring through information, like have you ever tried like, I think, how do you call automated writing or
That's what I was
automatic
talking about, yeah, before.
writing? Yeah, like in the beginning, it's very good because it distracts your thinking mind about
Yeah,
stuff. And you're just letting through, you're just letting the information come through. So
yeah,
that's like very good, I don't know, like starter on bringing through information.
right.
Like I did like journaling at a certain point, I think in 2013, like when I was like having some kind of issues or working on stuff in myself. And I got a notebook. I don't know, for some reason I got this inspiration to get a notebook, get a pen. And I was like asking questions of myself, like, okay, like
Yeah,
what's the problem? What should I do? Or what should I focus on? And without absolutely thinking about the answer, I just wrote down the answers for everything.
yeah,
And I was like, wow, like I didn't think of that, or I didn't see the
right.
situation in that light, basically.
Yeah, and that's how I started doing it too. I didn't know it was channeling. I think it was like a back in the days that I was in counseling, and they were like, just write without thinking about what you're writing, and your mind will be able to untangle it for you or something. I think is how they worded it. And years later, I'm like, I've been channeling this whole time.
Yeah, but people think, or like I don't know, like the psychiatrists think that maybe it's like you're just venting steam from your subconscious, like all the abstract stuff that you have there. I mean, some cases, it's probably true, but in many cases, like stuff come up from other sources too.
Right.
Like also, like many people try to rationalize these. I don't know if you had like a QHHD session, like which Dolores Cannon developed those regressions,
Mhm.
and you see very weird stuff in some cases, or you go to places which you have never heard of, for example, and people try to rationalize it like, okay, like my imagination or my subconscious is playing with me.
Yeah.
But how can it do that when you're like I know, like when you're like conveying information and things that you have never ever seen or heard of in this lifetime? Like,
Right.
how could that be possible to be in your subconscious?
Yeah. Exactly. The raw materials have been always something that I go back on for that same concept also, is that it just there's a lot of that's what I think is so beautiful. There's so many sources that are so old and so, but they were all the same time, and they're all consistent. How many that I mean, I guess you could wander into it's a grand conspiracy, and that's possible, but it just doesn't resonate with me if it's too in alignment and too correct, and like, and the conspiracy of everybody evolving and growing into a place of love, to me, is no conspiracy at all. We are getting to this point of where we can be in alignment and correct with ourselves, and our spirit guides have always been here to do that with us. They've always been here, and they will continue to be. Just because we uh, progress enough that we don't need certain individuals, they're still connected to us. You don't ever have to really say goodbye.
Yeah, like you can ask them again for something, initiate another contact or interaction with them. You can do that too.
Yeah.
Like some people told or shared stuff like you could, yeah, like you can't really upset them or like I
Yeah.
mean, you can be angry at them if you want to, or reject their help or something, but they won't get upset at
Yeah.
you and like leave you or anything like that. They're like very objective about it. Like, okay, like that's what you're going through right now. Like we're
Like,
going
right
to be
on.
out of your way so you won't see us, but we'll be here. Like when
Right.
in case you need us again, we'll be here.
Right. They're like the best grandparents, basically. No grudges. They're good. When you need them, they'll be there.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so in closing, do you want to share anything related to this or anything else that comes through?
um I just keep getting prompted to talk about love, and I didn't really do it enough, that to stay in that place of love. In the opposite of love is fear, and source, God, whatever you want to call the one creator or whatever. We that is the most pure, unfiltered love. And the closest that we can stay in that space, the easier that all of these things are, and the farther away and the closer to fear and self-shame and all those things are, it's you're going to be okay, but it will hinder your moments, and if you can stay in a place of love, just remind yourself to do that and to send that love out to those around you. That is all we really need to do in this moment. Everything else is just a cartoon.
Yeah, like what you send out is what you get back.
Right. Exactly. Tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you for joining us, Higher Vibrations.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for joining us, being live or just watching the replay. Like, much love to you, and stay tuned, because we're going to have the 222 and many twos portals, basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be in a few days.
Exciting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Pluto return, or what you have shared. Okay, it's probably going to be very interesting.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.